I would love to interview, interview, that is true, and speak to Genevieve and find out all about her awesome background, find out her stories, and also to get the all important confidence tip. So, welcome, first of all. How are you doing? How are you doing, Genevieve? Are
I'm
you good?
great. Thank you very much.
Excellent,
Yeah,
excellent.
yes.
Okay, so first question, tell us a bit about your story, your background. What do you do? Why do you do it? Which part of the world are you from?
Sure. We'll start from where I was born. I was actually born in Haiti in the Caribbean. And was, I from there. So every summer till the age of 13, I think, from probably the age of 6, I used to go to the US on vacation. Unfortunately, at the age of 8, my father died of a plane accident. My mom decided 2 years later to move to the US, and she took my younger sister. She wasn't sure if she was going to come back to Haiti or stay. And this is about the time that Haiti went from bad to worse. So she decided that in terms of education, it would be easier for us to be educated in the US. And then she moved us. Actually, right before my dad passed away, I found out that they were planning on moving over to France. So they had been this idea of emigration anyway, and it was more to be able to give us an opportunity to study and to do well. It's not that Haiti does not have opportunities, but the opportunities have gotten worse, mostly when you have disruption. So from there, I lived in the U.S. For almost 40 years, and during that time traveling quite a bit. And then about 10 years ago I moved to the UK. It was because of a job with RBS, where they were asking me to look at an implementation of a core banking solution. uh, After within 6 months, I decided that, I think about 6 months to a year, I met, no, it was 9 months where I met my husband. I did eHarmony.
Oh, nice.
And this gentleman from Jersey started talking to me, and it was like July, and every day he was sending email. Then we started talking, and every day calling, beginning and end. And I have to tell you, even till now, if I'm not home, we have a rule, which he got bitched at, and now he knows: good morning and good night. Everything else doesn't matter. We don't need to talk. We don't need, but the good morning and good night, whichever one of us does it, but it better be there when. So no matter in the world. But so we first got together. He moved to London, and then I then moved to Jersey because his mom is elderly, and we thought that would be easier. And also for me, it made sense at the point because I was moving to organizations where I didn't need to be in the office all the time, so I could do that. And also, it was very funny. I decided to leave RBS, and I went to him. I said, "Okay, um, I'm not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. We're too old. So I need a visa because I want to leave this job and I want this new job. So let's get married." It wasn't like the poor man had a choice. I'm like, the plan was to take you to the US, but that ain't happening. So we're gonna do it my way. So that we've been in Jersey, and throughout that, it's been like, let's say, I used to work for a very large organization, Chase Manhattan Bank, Hewlett Packard, GE, and then moved over to RBS, which had shrunk by the time I got there. And it was a shock to the system because I thought I was coming to work for an international company, and I found out I'm working for a UK company. Then I said, okay, might as well jump. And I started working for Identrust, which was somewhat international, but 25-year-old startup because it had 60 people, no more. But it was pretty influential because they ran the BACS network identity and
Mm.
identity for many of the banks. But the other invert of that was that you were working in a smaller company and things were happening in different ways. So it was a different mechanism of how you did it. And then for me, I then thought, oh, if I'm working for somebody else and I'm having to deal with these emotional aspect of a small company, I might as well start my own thing. So a friend called me and said, what do you know about blockchain? And at that time, I had spent the whole summer learning about the technology and creating my own view of it. That was 2015. So I said, okay, yep, sure. And so by February, that was when I told my husband we needed to get married because I wanted to take the job, which wasn't going to be able to give me a visa. So by February, I had my visa, and then basically um, I started doing uh, crypt. No, I did Identrust, and I did Cripsy. And then with India, it was a bit difficult because they were in India. I was the only one here, so the team wasn't working. I think nowadays we'll find that remote working is easier because you are actually having rules of engagement in terms of what you need to do. And you just don't go out and start doing things while the other person is sleeping. And or you get up and you're like, well, I don't really need to tell you anything because we all decided. And so at that point, I decided to shift to where I started my own thing, which was AgriLedger. And AgriLedger really came from an experience in a hackathon where the question was, how would you use technology that is today to change the world? And for me, I thought about what am I passionate about? And passion is food. Food and travels are my two passions. And I thought travel is very hard to use technology. Not that technology not used, there is a lot of technology, but there's a very small group of people who already control versus agriculture is large and lacks control. And how could I use what I had learned from before in banking to try to get to more of a straight through, and through that straight through, removing waste, which then allowed for everyone to get a better share or a better amount.
Wow, that is one hell of an opening. Excellent. In fact, that leads us on to the next question quite neatly. So, as you talked about being in banking, so tell us what it was like being a Black woman in the corporate environment. You know, how did you get through that?
So I actually not only I've worked in so many parts of organizations. So I started at the university. So I decided that I didn't want to go to med school. I still ended up with a medical background, but I didn't want to go to med school. So what I did was that I got a job as the um, receptionist in the dean's office at college, and that that allowed me to continue and to switch. So I have a minor in comparative literature, and my degree is in biochemistry. So
Wow.
I thought I was going to go into the arts, not the arts and the science, because I love arts also. But then I realized that I wasn't going to make money, and it was going to take me forever to go up the ladder. You had to start as somebody's secretary after having been doing that. So I left that role and I went to another part of university, which was about teaching people about computers. This was when the computers were first coming out, and it was telling people how to use them, how to best employ them. And I actually did my side gigs typing papers for for students or PhD students. So made money doing that because at the time most people didn't have a laptop or any way of doing it. So you would hire somebody to type it up for you. So that gave confidence through learning. And even in my corporate career, I always see it as a complete learning experience. And the other thing is, I also felt that I'm aware of who I am. When I walk in, I know I'm Black, but I also know what I have between my two ears, and nobody can take that away from me. So, which means there have been times people have said that I am arrogant, but that doesn't, to me, that's not arrogance, that I am confident into what I am. And the same thing also, I think I am very comfortable to make it clear when I don't know something. And I think that it's very important to be aware of who you are. And, so you had asked me about, we'll talk about it later, but for me, it's very, I grew up where my mom said, you need to understand the value of yourself. So if you understand your value and something, if you're lacking, you can always add to it. That's key. So therefore, no one can take away your value. They cannot diminish it unless you give them the right to do so. So for me, as a Black woman, I definitely get very pissed off when somebody says, "Oh, I can't believe you know this." I'm like, please. And also, I think that in another way, being of Haitian descent, one of the great things that we have, and his anniversary, 300-year anniversary is coming up, Dessalines, is that Dessalines freed Haiti in 1896, so not very long after the US, and it was the first Black nation because they wanted to be free to be who they were. So therefore, I always remember that I am as worthy as anybody, because he says, the one thing he said, give me liberty or give me death. So if you have you know, so you therefore can basically be whomever you want and whatever you want, and your only thing that stops you from doing that is yourself.
Yes, that's very true. We all have to be in charge of ourselves and lead ourselves. And sometimes it's hard for us to do that. But why don't we move into some of the challenges you might have faced while you were working in your corporate career? Do you want to share one of them and like tell us how you got over that?
um I think that the challenges are always the misunderstanding. So we kind of touched on it, that some, and I don't think I had it as much in corporate world as I've found that it is evident in the startup world, that the assumption that people make about you rather than understanding who you are, or understanding that it's not cookie cutter. So the challenges are always people making the wrong assumption, and then you have to change that. I don't see them as issues, I see them as challenges to be surmounted. Also, I always recognize that I had the power to walk. So it was up to me if I wanted to put up with it, and I never put up with it. Um, and that was a reputation I had, that I basically called it like it was, and just base. I remember once, um, this man, it was like really early in my career. He was the head of the department, and he first time he met me, and he said, "Oh, I see you've been making the coffee. It's such great coffee. What do you do?" I was like, "Excuse me." So I said, "Oh, it must be my little finger that I circle into it, that makes into the water that makes it good." Never ask for coffee again. But those are the kind of things, and people were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you said that." Well, I can't believe he said that to me. What? And I've had also, a situation where I've walked in. I remember that was actually not very long ago. I walked in to a room because sometimes you don't say anything, just doing your stuff. And this girl walked in, and she thought for some reason I was the admin, and started asking me to get things done for her. I looked at her, I said, "Why can't you get it done yourself?" And, it's so that's the part about it. So that's why I also always make sure when I'm in a meeting that I speak up. Because if you don't speak up, people assume that you're just there to take information down and not to contribute.
Yes, that's very true. That's very true. We all should speak up and not be taken as someone who doesn't have any ideas or opinions. I think I definitely agree with that. So moving on, how do you think that young Black women can, develop leadership skills? What do you think would be a tip that you'd give?
I'd say if you have put your hand up to run things. Like I say, if there's a little project management is one way to actually learn the skill set for leadership. because leadership is not about being upfront. Like if we think about it, when we think of all these um, great generals, they're not always at the front of the troops leading the way. They're strategizing what needs to happen, who needs to do what. When they get up front, that's usually when they get killed, because they're not looking at the rest in the back and not being very clear as to what is getting a view. So I think it's important to sort of learn leadership by through action. Yes, reading and studying will help, but action. So even if it is a small project of getting something done for at the work, put your hand up. If you don't have those opportunity at work, there are plenty of of charities. There's one of them which is called Matchable, which looks to put match people who are in corporate world with either non-for-profit or social impact organizations which are looking for support for a project. So that way you learn how to also deal with adversity. Because I think a lot of time what I see people do is they freeze when things don't go the way they expect to. And instead of saying, okay, what is my plan? They then nothing happens. So that's one way of learning leadership, because as a leader, things will never happen the way you expect them to. You will always have a deviation. If you don't, then it's too good to be true. So learning those deviations, learning how to deal with those bump in the road will prepare you for great leadership.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. And what would your advice be to women wanting to enter technical fields where it's male dominated? Any particular tips?
So I did say that I studied sciences, so probably for me, but I'm not a developer. And what we think we need to do is we need to realize that technology is one part. And where technology fails is when it fails to understand the human psyche or the human needs. And it's just, so you will have certain technology where they don't look at that and they get very lucky and it works, but that's very rare. In order to be able to um, so I think that as women, we do need to understand technology to understand what is good and what is bad, but we don't need to be all coders. I say more power to us if we can be. And I think that also there is now opportunities because you can work from anywhere, you can work from home, you can actually have your family and be able to be in technology. But that doesn't mean at some point, as I was saying, it's like the general. You're going to have to stop coding. So you do it, and now you need to know how to make the troop move, be it the technology team, be it the business team, or be in the organization. So you we have plenty of space for women in technology, and we need more women in technology. And the roles are not limited. I mean, you need legal, you need compliance, you there's a lot of opportunities, and it's just going. The one difficulty sometimes there will be is accepting that the salaries will not be what they need to be. But if you go into where you're managing your own story, you go in for 2 years, you move to the next one. Every time you move, you increase your salary until such time as you either create your own company or you get the kind of remuneration that you feel comfortable with. But I think that people sometimes look too narrowly at what is the role and what is the pay and do not take that as an opportunity to learn. I mean, my first roles, I barely got paid anything, but I saw all the learning opportunities I had from there. And I never stayed longer than 2 years, 2.5 years. And by the time I got to GE, I told them, this is the first time I've stayed anywhere for 4 years. My average is 4 years. And then now my company, I'm much longer, but it prepared me, all these jump prepared me for the opportunities later.
Well, I'm just going to ask you a question, which I feel that we should talk about, seeing as you've mentioned it. And that is speaking up about knowing your value and negotiating for a salary. Because I think a lot of women would like to get some tips on how do I know my worth and how should I speak up and say, when I'm going to the next job, what I should ask for. What would your advice be there?
You see, what happens is that I don't know that I'm great at it in asking, but I can also see if the number is something which is worth it. So I do my research and see what is the number that most men are getting paid or people in those roles are getting paid. So that information is available. You have glass doors, so you can see the average pay in the location, and then basically see if it is within the range. And if they're offering you something which is not in the range, you say no. Doesn't mean I say I want this. I just say no. And then if they come back and they say why, well, you're not giving me what I believe I am worth and what the market says I am worth. Not looking at me as a woman, not looking at me, it's looking at my experience and the output that you're asking me to do. This is the value. If you can't match it, thank you very much. I'll go elsewhere. It's I mean, those are the hard conversation. It doesn't need to, sometimes I think some women get too pushy and try. I don't feel comfortable saying this is how much I want. But also the other trick is, do not say how much, because if you tell them how much and they were planning on giving you more, you just got yourself lower.
Yeah.
So it's a game. You say, this is what I make right now. No lie. Okay. What you offering me? Okay. You know what? Because every time you go to a new job, it takes 3 to 6 months to get acclimated to where you are now feeling comfortable. So if you're not going to pay me enough to move, and you're not going to give me an opportunity enough to move, because sometimes pay, it's not always about pay. If the opportunity is not worth it for me, I stay where I am, where I'm comfortable, where I can close my eyes and get the job done. And this is the way we need to think, that we add value to the organization rather than the value being added to us, because that money anyway is fleeting. One day you may find that it's not, it has, we're lucky we live in the West where inflation and fluctuation not too bad, but in some places, like if we from day to day, whatever you make disappears. So you need, I think, first and foremost, it's important to really enjoy what you do and to get satisfaction out of it and to want to get up for it in the morning. Whenever I didn't feel like waking up in the morning to get to the job, I knew it was time to move. And it didn't matter then what the pay would be. It was more, what is the opportunity and what can I do from that?
Oh, amazing. And that brings us to the question of the hour. What is your confidence tip?
Self-awareness. I think, confidence is really built from yourself first. No one can give you that confidence. And it's that looking in the mirror and being able to say to yourself, I am wonderful. I know what I'm doing. I have ability. And if you have that sitting in the middle of your gut, no one can take it away from you. And you just have to keep building on it. So for me, like, let's say I still continue right now. Every day, I try to learn something new. I try to expand my horizon. And from that, I can then have more confidence about being able to do what it is that I wish to do. And if I don't know something and somebody comes in, I'm also confident to say, I don't know this. Let me find out more about it. But what I dislike is when somebody says, I don't know, please tell me about it. I'm like, go find it, go learn. But that could be also the research person in me more than anything else.
No, I think it's great.
See how you on the phone for my work
Oh,
number.
whoever.
My other phone is having some issues.
Can you
Okay, how
put
are you?
yourself on mute, please? Yeah, so I was just going to pick up with you and say I totally agree. I think that we need to know that, we can build confidence over time, and that we must be able to, to speak up and be open to learning. So I just wanted to
Yeah, I remember
finally
speaking,
ask
but I
you,
haven't gotten to it yet.
what
think I'm
is
just
your
trying to
quote?
show
So who is someone that inspires you?
New York list, and the DC one I think is already up. What?
Okay, yes, you're the one who can do that.
Yes.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes, sorry. Sorry for the interruption, folks. Just wanted to ask you, like, who inspires you, and tell us a quote and what does it mean to you?
Okay, so inspiration and quotes different. So in terms of the quote, as I mentioned before, I butcher quotes. I never remember them, but I did get a couple. I did get help to sort of be able to get you one. In terms of inspiration, the person that inspires me actually is my mom, because my mom lost her parents when she was 6. She grew up with her grandfather, and her grandfather passed away when she was 16, and she ended up living in families' houses and wasn't treated the best way. And then found my father and got married at 24, and my father died by the time she was 32. When my father passed away, my father's family actually said to her, and my mom is and was a beautiful looking woman. And they said, "You're beautiful. You can go and do your life. We'll take care of the children, and you can come and see them, but we'll basically uh, do what's necessary." And she said no. And she made sure that all 3 of us got the best education, not just university and high school, bless you, but also formation. I would never have thought I was living from a single parent. I had music schooling, I had dancing schooling. I quit when I wanted. We had the upright piano to play at home. We had everything. And then from university, my sister and I went to Columbia University, one of them, and the other one went to City College, which for a civil engineer, and really stellar educations without ever having to feel the pain of not knowing. So to me, that's who I admire, because as single-handedly, she not only raised 3 women, but 3 very strong women. And we have in that strength also of never fearing that we could do whatever we wanted to do and be whomever we wanted to be. So that's the one, Mama. And then in terms of quote, I had Alexandra help me, and she came up with a few from Brené Brown, but really the one that got to me was from Rob Sitterton. He says, "People who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do." And why that resonated for me is that there are mornings I get up today and I'm going, "You must be crazy." You really must have lost the plot. But also the reality is that I come from a family of longevity on both sides of the have uncles who are 97, 94, and 93, still kicking it, no dementia, no nothing. Their body is slower, but their minds are not. And then on my mother's side, the same thing. They either die young or they get so old, but they're not old enough that you can put them in the corner. So I figured out, if that's going to be my plight, I must as well consider this my second career. Obviously, not the way I would want to be doing it. I'd rather be coaxing it, but this is on my own terms. And this is about really being able to make a difference and to persevere. And for me, it is a mission. It is not, and also I'm not of the view that I'm going to be able to do that. So this by myself. So it is creating a movement. a movement which is long overdue, a movement of real equality, real access to life. And that's something that, to a good life. And good life doesn't mean you're flying. Somebody asked me the other day, says, for what you're doing, do you want to be a millionaire? I said, no. I just want to know that I can go shopping when I want, I can get what I need, and that I'm comfortable and the emergencies are taken care of. Aside from that, I'm fine. And I think that's what most people want. Because being a multimillionaire brings in other issues, safety, those kind of things are things that then you don't have. So therefore, being able to live your life in a good way is what most people want. And knowing that, I know that's what most farm people coming in from the farming. And then the other piece is that I really am not happy with this petri dish thing, meat made in the lab or food plant lab, because it's not what we're meant to eat. It's not because just what happened, okay, meat tastes fine, but some reason as a scientist, I'm wondering, when are we going to find out that it's bad for us? Because we always think it's good when we create it, and at the end we find out it's bad. So I want to be able to allow for all of us to be able to eat, and then for children to know where food comes in. Because if you ask most kids in the West, where does onion come in? How they'll tell you from the supermarket.
Yeah.
They've never seen an onion. They don't know what the process is. And so we need to be, and part of that is one, education, and two, if you become aware of where it comes from, then we will give respect to food, and we will then understand what the real cost should be. So I'm not suggesting that we should all pay high prices, but if you're making that thing come from around the world, you should not expect it. So bananas come from Costa Rica. We expect our bananas to be pennies on a dollar, which means those farmers are living in abject poverty. So those are things that is important. So for me, in terms of the mission, and why I see that my next 30 to 40 years is going to be about.
Amazing. Okay, so I guess to wrap it up, I wanted to give you the opportunity to shout out or spotlight any of your other things that you're involved in, any charity work, anything, and let us know what you're focusing on the coming months, where we can find you and connect with you and carry on the conversation.
So, I'm all over the place these days. Monica will agree. I'm not looking. I need a buffer.
Okay.
I need somebody to say no for me. I am speaking on the 30th, so I think Wednesday, on sustainability and the use of blockchain. I am doing a couple of internal calls, then everything, because of the wonderful Alexandra, everything now will be on on social media, but I am now working on getting my website up and running. I am very much open to having conversations, and we'll schedule calls. And I actually also was part of the startup leadership program. So this is something else that I would suggest anyone who's looking to start your own company, or to be able to start as an entrepreneur, start the entrepreneurial journey. And it's a program which is about 16 weeks of really building you, not your company, you as a leader. And part of what it does is also to give back. So for me, it's important that, so my things are finance or product management and program management. Anybody who needs help with that, more than happy to set up time and help review. So lots going on. And then to add, we are also looking to raise for the company. So we did some we spent the confinement time as a time of thanking, and also realizing that there was an opportunity in what we call fast moving customer good. And one of the most important fast moving customer good today is the testing and vaccine that we're about to have in the COVID. And this is about using the technology to create unique tracking for each device. And that way, assuring, like with foods, instead of food security, mental security, that the vaccine or the test that you're receiving has not suffered during its time. So pretty big, because then after that, after you get the money, you have to build a team. So there's quite a bit going on. So anybody also will be putting out the roles in the next few months as to what we're looking. And as I said, this is really creating a purpose-led organization. So anyone which is passionate about making a difference, by January, hopefully, all fingers crossed, everything is back to semi-normal, and we'll start looking to hire.
Wow, amazing, Genevieves. That's been, wow, we've heard so much from you, and I've been personally inspired. It's been really brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. Everyone knows where to get in touch with you, and I'm sure that they will. Yeah, everyone, let us thank Genevieve. Give her a massive round of applause.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we will be in touch. So take care, everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.